Hello, dear listeners and viewers of Riga Security Forum 2025 podcast series. My name is Uģis, Lībietis, and I'm a radio journalist and also a researcher at Latvian Institute of International Affairs. This time we're going to speak about our region, about situation in Baltics, but not only about that. And after the annexation of Crimea in 2014, the perception of security threats and security situation in this region and also in wider Europe changed. However, in 2022, after the full-scale invasion of Russia in Ukraine started, it changed even more dramatically. And these changes happened in very different levels, in political level, in military level, also in society level. However, the speed of actions that we have taken during these last couple of years, they differ from country to country. They differ from the attitude, from the thinking. And sometimes we rush too fast and we go too far. Sometimes we are thinking too much and do things too slow. But it all influences the level of our preparedness for, some possible future conflicts, some new challenges in the future. So this is what our today's discussion will really be about. Is Europe going to ready before it's too late? So I'm happy to introduce my today's guest. It's Viljar Veebel, who is a Baltic security expert in Tartu University and also in the European Council of Foreign Relations. Hello. So my first question will be about the general situation. As I mentioned, the war in Ukraine is going on already for almost 4 years, and we have started to develop our defense capabilities. We have started to increase our preparedness, but do we really know what we are getting ready for?
So the best times for developing our defense was 10 years ago, or even a bit more. So the small countries can only accumulate certain amount of wealth and population and train them, that it takes time. So we have to be time-wise more prepared than the big ones who can mobilize their resources, like our big hostile neighbor. So that is one side, that we cannot spend much more than we spend at the moment, and we cannot allocate more people than we allocate at the moment. The other side is what the bigger countries in Europe would have been done, and there the rhetoric was one way that we start to do when it is needed. Basically, that the military industry will wake up when there is a demand. So as you said, it's almost 4 years, and the military industry is very slowly waking up. So if we look how many tanks or jet fighters are built in Europe during 1 month, and you look at the losses in Russian invasion in Ukraine, then you can see that it is still all aimed on that let's hope the conflict will end first, and then we can understand what we need to build, what we need to modernize, and most probably most of it, even when we talk about sub-Gripens, will arrive when the conflict has already ended. So we can make first conclusion that European military industry and politicians have not been enough ready to put their impact to the Russian invasion in Ukraine. So more has been expected, and this has in some ways worked for Russia, as we hope they run out of resources faster than Europe. But at the moment, we mostly see that we can share with Ukrainians what we have in reserves, what we refurbish, what we buy from outside. So what we can say based on that Europe might have some willingness to share whatever they have. But if you look, for example, land forces of France, Germany, Italy, and Spain, the most probably Ukraine has more readiness in land forces than all those countries together. So that gives us the picture where we are and what needs to be changed. But on the balancing side, once again, Europe is hoping that there will be peace and there will be no need for such intense military industry.
So this is probably the second part of my question. Do we know what we have to be ready for? Are those really like real conventional threats or attacks, or hybrid threats are more acute necessity to be prepared against? So how do you think?
Yes, we have been analyzing it. What can we be ready? Because readiness takes energy. It's like humans mobilizing. So if you are ready for the competition, you're already spending energy for it. And if you are ready 4 years in a row, then you have been using your energy 4 years before the real action starts. So we have to be a bit careful how much we spend the long term for readiness, because what matters in the short term is one way, but it's the same like with the economy. You can mobilize a lot for 1 year, but if you want to be sustainable, a different calculation step in. But what we can be ready is readiness to adapt. It means that we are able to analyze where we do not need to rush. For example, to buy certain technologies which might be outdated in 1 year, like the Bayraktar case, and also have people who tell what will be the most probably the development during next 2 years. So if we go to the AE-led drone, like the Timofey's attack against Russian strategic bombers. So this is something where you actually need to develop the human competence first, mental openness that you're ready to do some things. We need to, or what we can do, what most reasonable is to have people who are open-minded and who are ready to calculate very different options from the traditional ones.
You already mentioned that there are some probably interesting perceptions about our possible enemy, and to calm societies, politicians usually say that, well, NATO is many times stronger than Russia. Russia is a giant on the shaky legs, and the sanctions are working, and we really don't need to be scared of Russia. Does it look convincing enough? From my point of view, it sometimes seems like an attempt to mask the real position, that we are actually kind of very scared. One thing from Russia's capabilities to adapt as quickly as they are doing, and which is faster than we were expecting. And the other thing is that we actually are kind of afraid to admit that we are quite weak and quite vulnerable.
Maybe let's start from the basic facts that we are smaller in any category. If we talk about the Baltic states, if we talk about the whole NATO, then we are more disintegrated. Whatever NATO does, it needs numerous heads of states to support it. Even if we talk about NATO's collective nuclear deterrence, we know that the buttons are in the hands of a few men at the moment, not the collective NATO. So we have to admit that NATO collective defense and deterrence is a very different animal from Russia's collective Putin, who can actually make decisions very fast and who does not need a consensus or negotiating. So that is the price for democracy. That is the price of collective security. Democracy is not always only benefit. Inclusion and procedures take time and are transparent, so our enemy knows what we do. And in that sense, we need to compensate it in some other way. The second problem for Europe is the moral concerns, which sometimes turn to be hesitations, that you need to listen also to people who don't understand this field or matter. So the professionals can understand, for example, if you take the professional medical people, they can understand when death is close, but if you will have public vote about this case, you might get a different result. So we are a little bit victims of public relations and strategic communication. Also politicians do not see any benefit to admit that we have disadvantages, and we need to say that it's in some cases we're not only smaller, but in terms of adaptation we might be even slower. If we see two countries at war, they can make the changes much faster because they have the reliable feedback, they have the urgency, they have the finances. Most of European countries start to think how to prepare this pre-enablers, the things which will allow one day to do those things. But us being slow and debating is based on our political culture, our social culture, and this will only change in that moment when the population feels the threat of survival. So both European Union and NATO are very different in that sense that the countries which are next to Russia have a very different feeling or worries about survival, while the ones who have never been occupied by Russia, they have a completely different opinion and they feel that the solutions might be elsewhere. So I think this differentiation is the key word here. And we cannot say that we are too much afraid or Spain is too little afraid. It is based on the actual risks. So we are at bigger risk as they are, and now it's our challenge to convince them to contribute. I think that the biggest problem at the moment is that once you are mobilizing for possible attack in upcoming years, you cannot gather any reserves. And you cannot prepare yourself because this readiness consumes a lot of resources, and this needs to be communicated to those countries who have not busy with readiness, who can be collecting reserves or can assist us. And so that might be the strength of NATO, that there are some distant countries who can allow themselves to be a bit different and to contribute differently.
About this different approach, well, we know that there are those big European countries and allies like Germany who has started to change their way of thinking, I would say. It at some moment it looks very slow and clumsy, but as I recently heard, it's very hard to make a quick turn for a big ship which just has started to turn a bit. But do you think that such countries really can understand this feeling of urgency or necessity to change in a probably much faster way that we perceive it?
We have a few examples here. I think one might be Germany, as you described, and the second one might be Sweden. So Sweden has surprised us with a readiness first to contribute with the equipment what they have to give their latest best equipment to Ukraine, but also readiness to really force the military industry to go much bigger volumes. If we take the airplane case, if Saab is ready to produce 150 Gripens in upcoming years, that is by far more than the rest of Western Europe altogether. And that is the challenge. If Sweden can alone do more than the other big players, that defines that it's not the systematic problem; it's a motivational problem. Maybe it's a self-deterrence that some countries don't want to go to that way because they believe later maybe they will be blamed on fueling the war and spending money on war industry. But I must also say that Finland is also a good case about producing military equipment despite its small size. How to convince Germany and France and even more Italy to put their effort in, that is another question, because at the moment Italian army will even consume the German military production. So if those Leopard tanks what Italy has ordered are needed elsewhere, and this is the case with many others. So we can also ask about what Spain could do and so on. Also, if you look France and UK, we don't see too much what can be delivered to someone else. We can see that they are now starting to compensate what they handled Ukraine, but they do it in their usual rate. So the budgets are growing very gradually, and the most visible effect might appear in 5 years earliest. So as one German expert said, Germany can be ready for war with Russia for 2040. So that is the kind of logistical calculation. So this is something what we need to take as a pre-situation that needs to be changed. We need to find a way, the German industry, to reprioritize what is needed.
To rephrase it in a sarcastic way, it means that we need to make sure that we are not attacked till 2040, otherwise we can't feel absolutely safe.
Yes, it's being not attacked is not only a matter of force. So what I sense, what has changed, that in 2014 everybody believed that German normative power with Frau Merkel and diplomacy of French president can do miracles, and it appeared that military power also mattered. Now we are on the other end of scale, that everybody believes that Putin only understands the military power, and Putin will attack everybody who is weaker. But this is doubtable that this is the aim of Russian foreign policy. As much we have been researching it, they want their status, but they want also the others around them to admire them. So you are not aiming to attack the ones who are not giving you the status. So it's not a big victory if Russia can destroy Estonia. It's nothing in the club status. So they have their plans, what we need to analyze more deeply, and it is not a simple machine. It is not an animal who eats everybody who is smaller than he. It's about political power and how Putin calls it, international respect, what he wants. So I think force is only one component there, but this situation needs to be changed in combined way.
Just to clarify, if we, what you just recently said about not only destroying enemy, but wanting to be admired probably to gain power, how does it work in the case of Ukraine? Because it's nobody likes him much now. He can't also bite the big size of what he expected before. Does it mean that it's really a failure?
In a way, it is failure for both of them. The situation is as hard for Putin as for Zelensky, because they both hoped for the other scenario. So they both hope that there will be no war, and the other side will go to compromise. And when it started, they both hope that there can be some kind of military victory, which we also are not seeing at the moment. So they both now need some kind of compromise, which they can present as a reasonable small victory. So getting something and getting out of the conflict. But the desperation is in that we cannot see any scenario where they both can see themselves, or they can present themselves as winners for the internal audience and for international audience. So this is, I think, if we want to end the conflict there, this is the most important, that Western experts need to help both Ukraine and Russia to understand that the conflict needs to be ended in one day, and most probably it needs to be ended with a compromise, and most probably both sides need to admit that the other side need to have something to present for their audience and their population. So losing, how Donald Trump said that it's very sad that we are losing thousands of people every day, and this is just we are losing because we are buying time to try to figure out what could be acceptable for both sides. and both sides still believe that they can wait until the other side will surrender in some reason. So that's why it continues, while actually the compromise is inevitable.
Speaking about the opinions of different European countries, for some time already we hear that there is some kind of anti-Ukraine alliance starting to create a shape in terms from Hungary, Slovakia, and probably somebody else. So how such ideas and kind of resistance to help to Ukraine, how does it influence the situation and perception of the situation in Europe and also in our region, specifically?
From our region, it is most inevitable. It is most visible that until the conflict is in Ukraine, we are buying time for us. So there are some people who believe that Russia might have two conflicts at a time, but those are very few experts, and it's very low probability that they try to attack small Baltic states who are in NATO at the same time when they have unfinished aggression in Ukraine. So basically, for us, supporting Ukraine to stay in the game is vital, because every day the war is there, it is not here. The second question about those different positions of European countries, we must admit that neighbors tend to have problems. So if you see who are mostly against Ukraine, those are the neighbors who had some kind of territorial issues with Ukraine, who had political issues with Soviet time Ukraine. I think this is understandable, and I really like the Polish approach, what they sometimes say, that despite having some sharp political notes, they are the supporters of Ukraine, because they understand the big importance of this result of the fight. With the Slovaks and Hungarians, it's a bit complicated, but the historical reasons explain it. With others who are far away and not afraid of Russian invasion or not being Russian friends, it's the question that Ukraine needs help without paying it for it. So basically, we are paying for it, and now those countries are asking, if we are not in direct danger, why should we pay, and how long should we pay, and what's in there for us? And Ukraine has been hoping that they can convince everybody that the others need to pay, otherwise Russia will attack them. But more further away from the Ukrainian borders, let's say starting from German-French border, public understanding about that the war might come to Europe is dropping dramatically. So this needs to be understood that yes, until Putin is aggressive, there is support for Ukraine in those areas which are possible next targets. But there is also kind of critics from the other countries who ask, why should we donate, why should we pay? Because there is always the question that from 2014, Ukraine did not prepare as much as possible for the possible upcoming conflict, and now the other countries ask why they should give their resources while there was an option for Ukraine to be better prepared.
Do you think that Ukraine itself and we, as probably the closest supporters of Ukraine, do we speak enough to other allies and explain the situation?
I think we speak, but we don't listen. So that is the biggest problem, that we all like our own arguments and our own voice. We all think more about our internal audience, what they will say. So if our minister is saying something, he is kind of thinking what kind of resonance that will have. But I think we need to do more work with our European and NATO allies to really make it more understandable what's in there for them, and to make it understandable for us what is possible. So we cannot expect Portugal really being as concerned and as committed than we are. It's so the empathy is needed, and Europe has other challenges as well, and Russia as occupier is only known for very few European countries. So it's we need to admit historical experience and political reality.
So this was my next question. How to convince the societies in different countries, for example, in Baltic countries, that the strategy that everything for defense and defense is the priority number one. So how to explain that? Well, we will, or you will need to sacrifice a bit of money for healthcare, for education, that's something. If you want to be, I don't know, living in a next 50, 60 years in a kind of peaceful situation we were living prior 2014. So how to convince that it is worth doing that?
The state and society can survive only as long as there are healthy people and there is education and there is population who can join the defense forces. And if you take the Estonian case about population shrinking, when I was born in that year, 26,000 people were born. Last year, 7,000 or 8,000 people were born. So the question is what is the priority? To have more weapon systems today and thousands of less kids for the future, or where do you draw the line? There is, of course, the option, or maybe the budget balance is the place. So I think when people see that the defense costs are rising, but the taxes are also rising, and they see really suffering people around them, and they see really that, for example, the educational system needs to do more to explain how it all works. So we need more effort to explain it to the people, and people can only understand it if they have education. So here I might say that I'm thinking we have taken away as much from healthcare and education and population reproduction as much was possible. Now, if we want to finance defense costs more, we need to borrow money, because otherwise there will be very few Baltic people after 50 years.
Speaking about those people who are still here and left here, and the possible people who will be approached as people to defend their country, how does these different political approaches, the attitude of neighboring countries, of different other European countries, how does it affect the loyalty and patriotism of people who are living, let's say, closely to the possible danger zone or borderline?
Yes, you're talking with one of them. So Tartu is 40, or let's say maybe a bit more, 50 kilometers from Russian border. So you can have artillery shells flying here if they want. All the conflicts which have been in the past tell that there will be not much left from Tartu or Narva population. So this is the case where people are asked to accept their death, basically, if the conflict comes, to save the others. And it is said that maybe this is the patriotism, that you admit that you will not be fighting. Your house is just bombed down, and you will even not know about it. But socially, I think this needs to be admitted or explained a little bit better. But those people who are next to border area, they need to have some other advantages. For example, if they prepare well for the conflict with their bomb shelters or something else, they need to have support from society and state to help the others to buy time for them. But this is where I see we could do much more. That, for example, we should have a proper bomb shelters. So, for example, for me now, when the siren comes, but there is also even no siren. So society needs to balance the expectation to people and how we reward them. So you cannot you cannot be taxed as heavily as the ones who are in safe area, and to be asked to prepare for war to have a bigger food supplies, for example. So more empathy is needed, more precision is needed for the comprehensive defense planners.
As we know that probably Baltic countries and I can say for sure about Latvia, we have been developing this all-inclusive defense strategy, which means involvement of every person who's living here. Do you think this strategy is effective, and probably it can being opposite created some resistance? That's well, you hope for me, but I want to save my life and my kids first, not to.
Yeah, you brought up two very different options, but there is kind of the third one, the ones who stay in encircled towns, for example, or in occupied territories, and who would benefit if they can prepare properly, or if nobody's giving you free day from the work nowadays to prepare your shelter somewhere yourself, so or give you a bonus payment to have some food stored in advance. The second part is that I think our understanding about the fighting is too much related or impacted from movies. But in the movies, people are never hungry, they are never dirty, they heal very fast, their families don't need the protection. In our studies about resilience and comprehensive defense, where we see the biggest problem is that if those ones who go to the front line or to fight leave, then the other ones have very little support to function properly, normally, because then they have not been prepared. There is no money reserves, there is no food reserves, there is nothing in the shops, and there is also no protection from the criminals. My proposal has been to test with to take some areas and really to test if certain people would be absent, let's say for even a week. How would the others manage their life? Because just one dilemma what we have, that if people go to fight for our independence, the patriots go away from their homes, then pro-Russian criminals all stay at their homes because they are not among the reserve. So basically, in every village where there were 5 patriots, there will be now 2 criminals who can dominate it. So this kind of resilience also in non-occupied territories, it needs to be understood much more precisely, and I think that is a very good way to spend money now, to understand village by village what can be solved in advance. And who should be those people? For example, if we mobilize medical doctors who will stay in the villages and give the medical help. So it's I think in terms of costs, buying artillery systems is one way, but to understand how people will really, just in case you think about, let's say yourself, if you need to go to the front line without preparation in tomorrow morning, it's a very different if you know that your family is prepared for that, or you don't know at all how they will manage, because there is no money reserves, no food reserves, they don't have car because it's taken for the defense use and so on, and there are no schools working, we don't know about the medical, so it's more can be done.
So the next question is then, has our strategy been smart enough and well, fast enough is one thing, but really smart enough and modern enough for the current situation and for any kind of impossible future scenario?
So as some skeptics say, human is as lazy as possible. So as long as I don't see any square meter of bomb shelter to the civilian people, so I think we can admit that we are lazy. As long as I don't hear from my friends that they have food reserves, it shows that they feel that there is no threat or they don't have motivation. Where we can learn, of course, Ukraine and Finland. So Finns are very good about that they are hardworking without being at risk. So they have the bomb shelters, they have the preparations. The reserve army is very well equipped and prepared. Ukraine is other case. They are in very good level because they have the pressure every day. It's for them. It's survive. Survival is only possible when you do your best, and that is the case. So my suggestion would be that we have a very systematic collection of experiences from both. First, what will actually happen if the Russians come? So what will happen in occupied territories? What will happen in the territories which are close to front line? What will happen in those areas where all the patriotic men were taken to the front line and all the cowards and bastards were staying and trying to control the system? So basically that defines what is needed. But we need also to learn from Finns how to get people motivated in a peacetime, because that is remarkable what they can do. It's we have this dilemma in the Baltics that if you explain more to people how big the threat is, then you are accused that you are a war hysteria producer. If you tell that everything is good, then people say that you are ignorant. So we need to find a kind of middle way.
One thing I can say for sure that we still pickle a lot of cucumbers for the winter time, and we will survive in terms of what we have in our basements, but which is, by the way, the case with Ukraine as well. But speaking about this preparedness from the military perspective, we see that Baltic states are taking similar actions in terms of drone technologies, in air defense systems, in other spheres. If we speak about in all this context, do you think it's effective, or it's researched enough to make such decisions?
We have a lot of work to do, which can be done right now and which should be done right now, because we need to understand when the conflict really starts. And what Russia tries to do is to make us hesitated. That, for example, that we are not sure where does the Estonian-Russian border go, because we don't have border treaty. So we are not sure if our allies will understand. If we tell them that it's a temporary control line, so is NATO about to defend a temporary control line, or how? We tell very nicely that we will protect every inch of our territory, but at the same time we are being very stubborn not to get the border treaty ratified. So because now it's the question that both sides needs to understand where the Estonian border starts, and we need to have paper for that for our NATO allies that we are sure about the circumstances. Also, the legal status needs to be clarified. All kind of hybrid strategies are mostly working for Russia, and it looks like, at least in military terms, military is ready to fight this kind of honest fight, but they believe that this is kind of like a gentleman's boxing match, that the start and end will be declared. But what Russia mostly will do is to get your exhausted and confused before the real conflict starts. So you are manipulated, and eventually maybe some people start to blame themselves, and that will take the efficiency away. So this is what we experienced with Soviet Russia before the Second World War. In terms of military, we were prepared very well, but in terms of mental readiness to draw the line and really to start to protect our territory, it did not work out. So in that sense, the mental resilience is needing addition. And also maybe we need to admit certain critical things. For example, that in our territory we have 25% of Russian speakers, and many of them might be the agents. It might be that the Russians know much better what is happening in our territory than sometimes we do ourselves. And we are sometimes optimistic by how smoothly the defense will go, how patriotic and loyal all the people will be, and that might be very shocking. What happens in the first or second day of war, if we need to admit that those territories where we have 90% of Russian speakers are actually very costly to defend.
You brought up very sensitive question for Baltic countries, which is like Russian speakers, a huge amount of society here. We have to admit that it was a political failure not to solve these questions like 35 years ago, probably. Is it the right time to do something in this term, or is it too late already?
How to say, we can focus on that what is easy to do or what is very prior to do. For example, if we believe that our military bases and training areas need better security, and we need that the Russians are not, the local Russian speakers are not informing Russian forces and giving them advantage, then we are talking about very few hundreds of people. So that is very easily doable. I take the Estonian case that basically you can go village by village checking who is who, trying to solve and trying to win some souls to our side, or relocate the other ones. But we are having like two parallel universes. We say that during the peacetime we cannot relocate them, but during the wartime we don't have resources anymore for this. But in terms of efficiency, there is no alternative to relocate some of them right away, because they are collecting data, they are providing guidance for them, they are providing feedback, they are doing sabotage and so on. It is kind of illusion that we can have effective fight having tens of thousands pro-Kremlin people behind our backs.
So there's no quick solution for that. It seems like that.
I think to have a solution, we need to start testing what can be done. There are many empty Estonian villages in Western Estonia, so I don't see the problem really to find living space for thousands of people if they get some renewed infrastructure, if this is a priority for the state. And some villages would actually need a new population. So it's but in somehow we just ignore some problems which seem to be too big to handle or legally too complicated. But there will be a price to be paid for that. As if you look at those hybrid warriors of Ukraine case as well, then old lady with cell phone can be much more dangerous than young man with rifle.
So, but the question is, to some people, definitely the idea of relocating some people would sound too radical. But probably, what should be done to make those people more loyal to the state, to the nation?
There is two ways. There are some people who can be, whose souls can be won back. But so we have done some studies a couple years ago, and visited also some people who were who were sharing pro-Kremlin propaganda and also leaking some data. Mostly it was socioeconomic problems. There were unemployed people, maybe sometimes also former elite, and they wanted decent living standard, and they wanted some kind of respect from the society. So they wanted to be in a good use, let's say that way. They didn't want to oppose Estonian society or government, but they were just there was nothing for them to do. They just wanted to get somehow this attention, and so most of this is also with some Russian agents, that they're not about only money, but they're about being important. So this is we should find a role for those people. And we should improve the education. We should allocate some funds for them to really feel that the future will be better than it is today.
One more thing, which is common, challenge, problem, solution for Baltic states. It's our common endeavor called Rail Baltica, and just recently I read that the European Commission is coming up with a set of proposals that will transform European Union logistics into a real military artery, and that the idea is to ensure that immediate transfer of weapons and personnel in the event of threats, and that the Baltic states are going to be one of the key elements of this new strategy. Up until now, for many years, politicians have been not very enthusiastic about speaking about the military role of Rail Baltica project. We see that this project is, I wouldn't say moving forward very fast and very in the best way, but how would you characterize this project and importance of this in securing our region's defense capabilities and logistical things, etc.?
Yes, I think we could have another podcast about the Rail Baltic here. So this started to be designed for something like a comfortable passenger trains, which are fast but mostly fragile. They're very complicated, and if there is problem with safety, the system switch off, and so basically, modern passenger train is very easy to stop, especially in the age of drones. So small attack will do a lot, and then we started to talk about maybe this railway could be used for the military transportation. But we have the railway for military transportation, which is designed for that. Of course, it would be good to have a second one, because many people might want to leave, and if you have two railways, it might be less jamming. But in military terms, Rail Baltic takes too much money and gives too little added value. I think it had all the importance until Finland and Sweden joined NATO. Now it is. It might be much more effective and bringing more volumes if we will safeguard the sea line connections with Finland and Sweden, because bringing military equipment by sea line is a better option, because it's more unpredictable, and Russians can have less impact by drones. So I think the Rail Baltic is having its importance, but there will be no military importance in that sense, that if it has to go through from Suwalki corridor, that will not going to happen during the military during the wartime. So it's kind of cheating ourselves that train will be ongoing while there will be attack on us. And if the equipment will be brought before the conflict, I can't see the problem why the existing railway cannot be used. The railway is not full. It's at least in Estonian side, it's 70% empty all the time. So if somebody has equipment, it can be transported right away. So it's, in my opinion, we should go on gradually with Rail Baltic, but there is no point to dedicate too much military importance to it.
And probably in the end, I would like you to sum up. If we speak about the Baltic defense and security capabilities, what would be, in your opinion, 3 things that we are the strongest in, and 3 things that we are the weakest in, and we have to think about more in the future?
I would maybe say it differently. There are things which we cannot change, and we try to pretend that the hedgehog can be deterring bear, but the hedgehog will remain hedgehog. And if you have such tiny territories which can be covered by opponents' artillery and air defense and everything else, so there can be like a huge bubble around us. So there is no way you can make the territory bigger, and also the problem is that there is no way you can have more allied deployments here because you just don't have space for them. This kind of hope for the conventional balance with the Russian forces in the region is hopeless. Buying 12 more HIMARS rocket launchers will improve the situation, but that does not compensate the capabilities of Russian strategic forces. So eventually they can always end up with intercontinental missiles, and so we need to find the balance or the compensation elsewhere. And I think what Finnish President Stubb is doing, that visiting the US almost every weekend, is one example that maybe strong bilateral connections are very important. So I'm not telling that NATO is not important, but for us, the NATO mechanism, which was not designed for such extreme cases, it might be too slow. So also I think where we are in problematic situation is that we need a very fast reaction time for our allies, as this airplane case. So if the Estonian airspace only is reaching 12 minutes, so if you want to do something, then the decision should be made inside those 12 minutes. Otherwise, the airplanes will be in Latvia already. So this needs to be admitted, that the procedures need to reflect the reality. And the third one, in my opinion, there will be a lot of achievable results if we cooperate more with Nordic countries and also with Poland if they are interested. We cannot expect the rest of NATO to be as worried as we are, but we can expect Poland and the Nordic countries to understand and share the worries, and maybe we can offer them some benefits if they cooperate with us. So I hope NATO can somehow find a model that some countries cooperate more deeper, and they have their own procedures. Yes, there might be plans what to do with Russian airplanes in the NATO level, but it needs to work very well between Estonia and Finland, and between Estonia and Sweden as well. So maybe the biggest challenge and weakness is that if the conflict starts, there is no victory for us. Our population will be killed, and our territory will be burnt down to the ground. So whatever we design, it should avoid the conflict. If somebody says that we had this Estonian defense report, that will we be winning the war against Russia? That is not a proper question. The question should be, will that be enough to avoid Russia to attack us? So it's go somewhere else, delay it. Most probably we need to delay them, so they see somebody else being easier target. There is nothing else to do in this world. That if you cannot run faster than a bear, you need to be running faster than your colleague from other country. So we need to admit the limitations, and we also need to communicate our limitations to our NATO allies. We cannot spend more. That will be with the cost of population shrinking. And that is not the point, that the farmers near the borderline are all the time the border guards, let's say that way, or the warriors. The ones who are far away need to put their effort to the collective defense before the war. And of course, when the war comes, then it will be also as appreciated.
Let's just hope that nothing like that happens, and there will be no necessity to talk about this in reality. But at this moment, I really thank Dr. Viljar Veebel for this very fruitful insight and discussion about security in the Baltic region. And I truly hope that this episode of Riga Security Forum podcast was helpful for you, and that we all together will take those actions that are necessary to increase our own security, our own preparedness and readiness, and we will never be too late for the next possible challenges. Thank you.